The restaurant was loud, crowded, and full of chatter, but she moved through it like someone used to noise. She balanced plates, took orders, and smiled at customers even though her eyes showed she was tired. Her name was Maya, and everyone could see she worked harder than anyone else on the staff. But what no one knew was that she carried a secret tucked close to her chest. Underneath her apron, a small baby, no more than a few months old, slept quietly in a soft carrier hidden beneath a folded cloth. Maya kept checking gently to make sure the baby was still breathing fine, still warm, still safe. She whispered tiny words between orders, hoping no one noticed. She had no other choice today. Her sitter cancelled, daycare was full, and she had already missed too many shifts. One more absence and she would lose the only job that kept her rent paid and food on the table. In the far corner of the restaurant sat a man who watched everything without speaking. He was dressed simply, but anyone who looked closely could see the signs of wealth in his watch, his calm posture, and the way staff treated him with nervous respect. He was a tycoon, a man whose name appeared in business magazines and news articles, but today he was just a quiet observer eating lunch alone. His eyes followed Maya as she moved from table to table. He noticed she never complained, never slowed down, never showed frustration. Even when her feet ached and her shoulders slumped, she still treated every customer kindly. The tycoon watched with growing interest, sensing there was something unusual about her strength. Customers seemed to like her, too. A family at one table complimented her service. An old couple tipped her with a warm smile. A group of young friends laughed with her as she joked lightly. But in the kitchen doorway stood the manager, arms crossed, face tight with irritation. He had been watching Maya closely for days, complaining that she was distracted, slow, and unreliable. He never cared to ask why. He only cared that the restaurant ran the way he wanted. His eyes narrowed when he saw Maya adjusting the cloth near her chest. He sensed something was off, and his impatience grew like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Meanwhile, the tycoon continued observing. He saw the customers happy, he saw Maya doing the job of two people, he saw the manager glaring, and most of all, he saw a moment that no one else noticed. The baby gave a tiny whimper beneath the cloth, barely a sound, but Maya reacted instantly. Her hand moved gently, soothing, comforting, calming, and in that subtle moment, he understood. His eyes softened as he realized she was not only serving meals but protecting a life while doing it. The weight of that responsibility impressed him deeply. Maya felt fear rising in her chest with every passing minute. She prayed the baby would stay asleep. She prayed no one would hear. She prayed her manager would stay in his office. She did not want sympathy. She did not want special treatment. She only wanted to keep her job long enough to survive the month. Her thoughts raced while her feet kept moving. She lived in two worlds at once, the world of the restaurant and the world of motherhood, and she was terrified of dropping either one. But fate moved differently. A small cry escaped, louder this time. A customer turned, then another. The room shifted. Conversations paused for a second. Maya's heart pounded as she tried to soothe the baby, hoping it would stop, hoping no one would react, hoping the world would give her just a little more time. But the manager heard it. His head snapped up, his expression changing into anger and disbelief. He stepped forward, pushing through tables, his voice sharp and rising. Customers sensed tension. The tycoon watched closely, his jaw tightening. His instincts told him something unfair was about to happen. The manager reached Maya and demanded to know what she was hiding. His voice was loud enough that nearby tables stopped eating. Maya froze, her hands shaking. She tried to explain quietly. She told him she had no childcare and could not afford to miss work. She spoke with humility, not excuses. Her voice trembled but her posture stayed respectful. She begged him to understand. She promised it was only for today. She said she would work twice as hard. She just needed to keep her job. But the manager did not care. His pride and authority mattered more than her struggle. He raised his voice again, and the restaurant went silent. The tycoon leaned forward, watching every detail. He felt anger rising inside him, but he stayed still, observing, calculating, wanting to understand just how far this injustice would go. Customers stared, unsure whether to step in. Some looked away, uncomfortable. Others whispered, wondering how someone working so hard could be treated so harshly. Maya felt her world collapsing. She held her baby close, her eyes filling with tears she refused to let fall. She felt humiliation, fear, and helplessness all at once. The tycoon knew in that moment that what he had witnessed was more than a scene in a restaurant. It was a moment where someone with power crushed someone with none, and he felt something shift inside him. He decided then that he would not leave things as they were, he would not stay silent, he would not ignore what he saw. He continued watching, waiting for the right moment, knowing that his next move would change everything for her and for everyone who saw what happened that day. The manager's voice grew sharper as he scolded Maya in front of everyone. His words cut through the restaurant like a blade. The customers stared in shock, some whispering, some frowning, but no one stepped forward to defend her. Maya held her baby close, trying to keep her hands steady even though her heart was shaking inside her chest. She tried to speak calmly, explaining again that she had no one to watch her child. But the manager refused to listen. He accused her of breaking rules, disrupting customers, and bringing personal problems into the workplace. His tone was cold, loud, and humiliating, and Maya felt smaller with every word he threw at her. The baby let out another soft cry, and the manager's eyes widened with anger. He pointed toward the door and told her to leave immediately. He said she was fired, not tomorrow, not after her shift, but right then, in front of everyone. The room went quiet except for the baby's tiny sounds. Maya stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. She felt dizzy from the shock. Her job was her lifeline, and it was being ripped away in seconds. She looked around for help, but the customers lowered their eyes, pretending not to see, pretending not to hear, pretending it wasn't their business. Only one person watched with intensity, the tycoon in the corner. He did not look away, he did not pretend, he saw everything. He saw the cruelty, the fear, the injustice, and the silence of the room. His jaw tightened, his fingers curled slightly, and his eyes followed Maya as she slowly gathered her things with trembling hands. The manager turned his back and walked away as if she were nothing. As if her struggle did not matter at all. Maya walked toward the exit, holding her baby and trying not to cry, but tears still slipped down her face. She pushed the door open and stepped outside into the cold air, feeling the world collapse around her. The tycoon waited a moment, then stood up. He placed money on the table and walked out. His steps were calm, but his mind was not. He found Maya sitting on the curb just outside the restaurant, her baby nestled against her chest, trying to sleep again after the noise and shock. Maya wiped her cheeks, ashamed that a stranger was seeing her like this. She kept her gaze down, afraid to speak, afraid of judgment, afraid of pity. But the tycoon sat beside her, leaving enough space to not make her uncomfortable, and he spoke in a gentle voice, asking if she was all right. Maya tried to answer, but her voice cracked. She apologized, as if her pain was an inconvenience to the world. She said she would be fine, even though she clearly wasn't. The tycoon asked why she had to bring her baby, and she finally told him the truth. She had no family to help. Her child's father disappeared before the birth. Daycare costs more than her rent, and she had already missed work twice because of emergencies. She explained she could not risk losing her job, but now she had lost it anyway. Her words were soft but full of exhaustion, like someone who had fought too many battles alone. The tycoon listened without interrupting, his eyes softened with understanding. He saw not a problem, not a burden, but a mother doing everything she could to survive. He admired her strength, her dignity, and the way she still held her baby with love despite everything falling apart. He asked her what she wanted most right now. Maya laughed sadly and said she only wanted a chance, not charity, not favors. Just a chance to work and raise her child without being punished for it. The tycoon nodded slowly, thinking deeply, feeling something awaken inside him, a sense of responsibility he had not felt in years. People passing by glanced at them, some recognizing the tycoon, some confused why a powerful man sat beside a crying mother on a sidewalk, but he ignored their looks. His attention stayed on Maya. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card, and handed it to her. He told her to call the number tomorrow morning. He said he had an idea that might change her situation. Maya stared at the card, unsure if this was real, unsure if she could trust it, unsure if hope was safe to feel again. She thanked him quietly, still overwhelmed, still scared, still uncertain. The tycoon stood, gave her a reassuring nod, and walked away without explaining more. Maya watched him leave, holding the card tightly as if it were the last thread keeping her from falling apart. She looked at her baby and whispered that maybe, just maybe, things could still change. She did not know who the man truly was, and she did not know that her story was only beginning, but deep inside, something small and warm flickered back to life. A feeling she thought she had lost forever, hope. The next morning arrived with heavy clouds and a quiet sky. Maya barely slept. She spent the night staring at the business card, wondering if it was real, wondering if the man meant what he said, wondering if hope was dangerous to hold on to. Her baby woke early, hungry and restless, and Maya rocked her gently while thinking about the restaurant, about losing her job, about the humiliation that still burned inside her. She feared calling the number and being laughed at, but she feared doing nothing even more, because rent was due soon and her fridge was almost empty. Finally, with shaking hands, she dialed the number. A calm voice answered, professional and respectful, asking her to come to an office building downtown at noon. She hesitated, unsure if she belonged in such a place, but the voice reassured her, saying she was expected, saying her name as if she mattered. Maya packed her baby bag, dressed in her cleanest clothes, and took a bus across the city. Her heart beat fast the entire ride. She looked at her sleeping daughter and prayed she was doing the right thing, prayed this was not another disappointment waiting to break her. When she arrived, she stood frozen outside the tall glass building. People in suits rushed in and out, moving with purpose and confidence. Maya felt small, out of place, and terrified, but she reminded herself that she had survived worse. She lifted her chin and stepped inside. The lobby was bright and polished, and a receptionist greeted her kindly, not with judgment, not with annoyance, but with warmth. The receptionist offered her a seat and even a bottle of water for the baby. Maya felt her eyes sting with surprise. It had been so long since anyone treated her gently. A few minutes later, she was guided into an elevator and taken to a high floor. The doors opened into a quiet office with large windows overlooking the city, and there he was, the Tycoon, sitting at a desk, looking up with a small, welcoming smile. He stood and thanked her for coming, his tone respectful, his eyes steady. He asked her to sit. Maya lowered herself into the chair, holding her baby close, unsure what to expect, unsure why she was really there, unsure if this was a mistake. The Tycoon explained that he had spent the night thinking. He said he could not forget what he saw at the restaurant. He said no mother should be punished for protecting her child. He said people with power had a duty to act when they witnessed injustice. His words were calm but strong. Maya listened, stunned that someone like him spoke about her life with seriousness, as if her struggle mattered, as if her story deserved attention. She felt something loosen in her chest, something she had held tight for a long time, her belief that no one cared. Then the Tycoon revealed something that left her speechless. He said he wanted to offer her a job, not as a waitress, not as a cleaner, not as someone hidden in the background, but as part of a new initiative his company was launching, a program to help single parents, to provide childcare access, to create fair employment opportunities. He said she would help shape it, guide it, and represent it, because she understood the struggle better than any consultant or executive ever could. Maya stared at him, her mouth slightly open, unable to speak, unable to believe what she was hearing. She asked why he chose her, why someone like her deserved such a chance. The Tycoon replied with simple words, because she never gave up, because she worked with dignity, because she protected her child even when the world punished her for it. He said strength like hers was rare, and people needed to see it, hear it, learn from it. Maya felt tears fall, not from sadness, but from relief, from gratitude, from the sudden realization that her suffering had been seen by someone who could change her future. Before she could fully process it, the door opened, and an assistant entered with paperwork, employment forms, childcare arrangements, transportation options, medical benefits, and a schedule that considered the needs of a single mother. Maya looked at the documents, overwhelmed. The assistant smiled and told her there was no rush, that everything would be explained, that she was supported now. Supported in a way she had never been before. Maya held her baby and whispered softly, feeling a warmth spreading through her heart. Outside, the city continued moving, unaware that a life had just shifted, unaware that a moment of cruelty at a restaurant was transforming into something powerful. The Tycoon watched Maya sign the first page, his expression thoughtful. He knew the restaurant manager would soon regret what he had done. He knew the world would hear this story eventually. He knew this was only the beginning, and as Maya finished signing, she realized it too. Her life was no longer collapsing, it was beginning. Again, in a way she never imagined. News of Maya's firing spread through the restaurant staff faster than the lunch rush ever did. Some workers felt guilty for staying silent, others pretended nothing had happened, and the manager walked around proudly as if he had proved his authority. But outside that small world, something very different was happening. Maya was now preparing for her first official day working with the Tycoon's company. She woke early, fed her baby, packed a small blanket, and looked at herself in the mirror. For the first time in a long while, she saw hope instead of exhaustion, fear, or defeat. When she arrived at the office building again, she felt less afraid. The receptionist greeted her by name, and the security guard smiled at her kindly. People noticed her baby but not with annoyance, more like curiosity and respect. She was taken to a quiet room designed for parents who needed a private space. There were toys, a rocking chair, and soft lighting. Maya felt her chest tighten with emotion. She had never seen a workplace that cared this much about someone like her. Then the Tycoon entered the room. He thanked her for coming and asked how her morning was. His tone was calm, friendly, and sincere. He introduced her to two other employees who would be working with her on the new initiative. One was a woman who had once been a single mother herself. The other was a man who grew up in poverty and wanted to support people who struggled like his family did. Maya realized she was not alone here. She was surrounded by people who understood hardship, people who valued compassion, people who believed change was possible. They moved to a meeting room, and the Tycoon asked Maya to share her story, not the sad version, not the humiliating version, but the honest version. She spoke about juggling jobs, about taking buses in the rain, about skipping meals so her baby could eat, about smiling at customers even when she wanted to cry. The room grew quiet, not with pity but with respect. The Tycoon listened carefully, taking notes, asking questions, treating her words like something valuable instead of something embarrassing. Maya felt her confidence grow as she spoke, like a voice she had forgotten was returning to her. The Tycoon then explained what he wanted the program to achieve. He wanted workplaces to offer childcare options. He wanted employers to treat single parents fairly. He wanted policies that protected mothers instead of punishing them. He wanted dignity to be a standard, not a luxury, and he wanted Maya to be the face of this change. Maya felt her heart beat faster. She never imagined she could influence anything beyond her next paycheck, yet here she was, being asked to help change the way people were treated across an entire company. Meanwhile, back at the restaurant, customers started asking where Maya had gone. A regular who liked her service asked loudly why the kind waitress was missing. The manager lied, saying she quit, but another employee whispered the truth to a customer, and soon the truth spread table to table. People were shocked, some were angry, some said they would never return. The manager felt the shift, and for the first time, doubt crept into his confidence. While the restaurant's reputation began to crack, Maya was touring the office, seeing departments, meeting workers, learning how things operated. Everywhere she went, people treated her with kindness. She carried her baby without fear, without shame, without judgment. The Tycoon watched her from a distance, noticing how naturally people responded to her warmth, her sincerity, her strength. He saw something powerful. She wasn't just someone who needed help, she was someone who inspired others. Later in the afternoon, the Tycoon asked her to join him in his private office. He closed the door gently and sat across from her. He told her something he had not shared before. He said that years ago, his own mother had struggled just like her. She raised him alone, worked multiple jobs, and was often treated with disrespect. He said he built his empire because she taught him resilience. And now he wanted to honor her by helping others like her. Maya felt tears rise again, but this time they were soft, grateful tears, not painful ones. The Tycoon then asked her a question that took her by surprise. He asked if she believed she could lead. Maya froze. Lead? She had never led anything in her life except her own survival, but he told her leadership was not about titles or power, it was about courage, empathy, and the ability to rise after being pushed down, qualities she already had. Maya felt something awaken inside her, a sense of worth she had been denied for years. As the day ended, she walked out of the building with her baby and a quiet smile. People passing by had no idea that a life had shifted, that a future had changed, that a woman who had been fired in humiliation was now being lifted into purpose. And as she stepped onto the sidewalk, she realized something powerful. What happened at the restaurant was not the end of her story, it was the beginning of her rise. The next few days brought changes that no one expected. Maya arrived at the office each morning with her baby, and every day she learned something new. She learned how meetings worked, how decisions were made, how ideas became real programs. She listened, she asked questions, and slowly she began to speak with more confidence. The tycoon watched her progress quietly, pleased but not surprised. He always believed she had potential, and now she was proving it with every step she took. Meanwhile, the restaurant was facing a storm. A customer had posted online about seeing the manager fire a hardworking mother in front of everyone. The post spread quickly, people shared it, commented on it, and expressed outrage. Soon local news picked it up, reporters came to ask questions, customers canceled reservations, and reviews dropped from glowing praise to angry warnings. The manager panicked, insisting the story was exaggerated, but no one believed him. His arrogance from earlier began to crumble into fear. Back at the office, Maya was given her first real assignment. The tycoon asked her to design a proposal for a childcare support program that could help employees like her. He told her to write it in her own words, not in business language, not in cold policy terms, but in a way that captured the real struggles parents faced. Maya spent hours thinking about it, remembering nights she stayed awake rocking her baby, mornings when she walked in the rain, afternoons when she worked through hunger. She poured her experiences into the proposal, not with bitterness, but with clarity and hope. When she finished, she handed it to the tycoon, expecting him to change everything, but instead he read it carefully, line by line. His expression softened, and when he finished, he said it was powerful. He said her words could influence thousands of lives. Maya felt her breath catch. She never imagined her voice could reach beyond her own struggles. The tycoon told her they would present her proposal to the board of directors, a group of powerful people who controlled major decisions. Maya's heart raced with nerves, but she nodded, knowing she could not turn back now. The next day, Maya entered the boardroom, a long table surrounded by serious faces. Some executives looked confused when they saw her carrying a baby, others seemed curious. The tycoon introduced her, and she stood at the front of the room, hands slightly trembling, but her voice steady. She spoke about real life. Not numbers, not charts. She spoke about mothers who worked 2 jobs, fathers who had no help, parents who sacrificed everything for their children while being treated like burdens. The room grew silent, not out of disbelief, but out of awakening. When she finished, no one spoke for a moment. Then one director cleared his throat and said he had never thought about these struggles before. Another admitted his own mother worked nights when he was a child. A third said this program could redefine their company's reputation. Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized she had reached them, not with power, but with truth. The tycoon looked at her with quiet pride, knowing this was exactly what he hoped for. While Maya was standing before executives, the restaurant manager was crumbling under pressure. More complaints surfaced. Former employees came forward with stories of mistreatment. A petition demanded his removal. The restaurant owner called him, furious about the collapsing business. The manager tried to defend himself, but his voice shook, and for the first time, he felt the consequences of his cruelty. Back in the office, the board voted, the childcare program was approved, and Maya was offered a permanent leadership role overseeing its development. Maya felt tears form, not of sadness, but of disbelief and joy. She looked down at her baby, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the world changing around her. The tycoon congratulated her and said this was only the beginning. He told her that the strongest leaders were forged from hardship, and she had endured more than most. As she left the boardroom, employees clapped softly, some with admiration, some with inspiration. Maya walked through the halls with a new sense of belonging. She was no longer the woman hiding her baby in a restaurant. She was no longer the mother begging to keep her job. She was someone whose strength created change, someone whose voice mattered, someone rising into a life she once believed was impossible. That evening, as the sun set over the city, Maya stood by her apartment window, holding her baby gently. She whispered that their future was brighter now, that the world could be unfair but also surprising. She thought about the tycoon, about his kindness, about the way he chose to act when others stayed silent. Maya realized something important. He had not saved her, he had simply opened a door, and she was the one who walked through it. She felt stronger than ever before, ready for whatever came next, knowing the story of her life was no longer defined by hardship, but by possibility. The days that followed felt unreal to Maya. She now had an office badge, a work email, and a title she never imagined she would hold. People greeted her in hallways, not with pity or annoyance, but with respect. Some even asked for her advice, not because she was important in the company yet, but because her perspective mattered. Her baby stayed in a childcare room nearby, cared for lovingly by trained staff. And Maya could check in any time she wanted, the constant worry that once lived in her chest began to fade, replaced with a new and unfamiliar feeling, security. The Tycoon continued guiding her, but he also gave her space to grow. He told her that true confidence comes from doing, not being told. Maya began attending meetings with other departments. She learned about budgeting, training programs, and workplace policies. At first, she felt overwhelmed, but she reminded herself that she had survived far harder things. Soon she started offering ideas, small at first, then bolder. People listened, took notes, and nodded thoughtfully. Maya realized she belonged here more than she ever believed she could. Meanwhile, outside the walls of the company, the story of the restaurant continued to unravel. A journalist discovered Maya's connection to the Tycoon and wrote an article about the injustice she suffered. The headline spread through social media, painting Maya not as a victim, but as a symbol of resilience. The article praised the Tycoon for stepping in, but it praised Maya more. The restaurant's reputation crumbled further, and angry customers demanded accountability. The manager watched helplessly as everything he once controlled slipped from his hands. Back in the office, the Tycoon called Maya into his private meeting room. He showed her the article, asking if she was comfortable with her story being public. Maya read it slowly, expecting to feel shame, but instead she felt pride. Her struggle was no longer something to hide, it was something that could help others. She nodded and said she was ready to use her voice. The Tycoon smiled and told her there was something new he wanted her to consider, speaking publicly about the program they were building. The idea terrified her. She had never spoken in front of large groups, let alone the media, but the Tycoon told her she didn't need to perform, she only needed to be honest. He said people connected more with truth than perfection. Maya spent the evening practicing her story, holding her baby between moments, breathing deeply, reminding herself that she had already survived humiliation, poverty, and loneliness. Speaking could not be harder than living through those things. The next morning, Maya stood on a small stage in a company event hall. Employees, journalists, and community leaders filled the room. Cameras were pointed at her, lights shining softly. The Tycoon stood nearby, offering silent support. Maya began speaking, her voice quiet at first. She talked about the challenges of being a single mother, about being judged instead of helped, about the moment she was fired, and the moment she was offered a chance instead of punishment. As she spoke, her voice grew stronger, steadier, filled with conviction she never knew she had. The audience listened without blinking, some wiped tears, others nodded with understanding. When she finished, the room erupted into applause, not polite or forced, but heartfelt, genuine, powerful. Maya felt her knees weaken, not from fear but from the realization that she had just changed something bigger than herself. The Tycoon stepped forward, shook her hand in front of everyone, and said her leadership would shape the future of the company's values. Reporters rushed forward with questions, but Maya stayed calm, answering with sincerity and grace. Across the city, the restaurant manager watched the broadcast on a television in the kitchen. His face turned pale as he realized the woman he had fired was now being celebrated, admired, and supported. Employees glanced at him with disgust, seeing him differently now, seeing him as the one who tried to destroy someone who rose higher than any of them expected. The owner of the restaurant called again, but this time the conversation was short. The manager was told not to return. His reign of cruelty ended not with triumph but with silence and regret. Meanwhile, Maya returned to the office after the event and found a crowd of co-workers waiting for her. They applauded again, offering congratulations, encouragement, and admiration. Someone handed her a small bouquet, someone else thanked her for speaking for people who never had a voice. Maya held her baby and smiled, feeling something deeper than happiness, something stronger than relief. She felt purpose, a reason to wake up, a reason to keep going, a reason to believe her life had meaning far beyond survival. That night, she walked home with a calm heart, the city lights reflected in her eyes, and her baby slept peacefully against her. The world had changed, not magically, not suddenly, but through a chain of moments born from hardship and courage, and as she unlocked her apartment door, she whispered to her child that their story was still unfolding, that there were more chapters ahead, and that they were no longer alone in the world. Their journey was now filled with possibility, with dignity, and with a strength no one could take away again. In the days that followed Maya's speech, something unexpected began to happen. Her story spread far beyond the company walls, newspapers wrote about her, radio hosts discussed her courage, and social media users shared clips of her speaking with honesty and strength. People called her an inspiration, a symbol of dignity, a reminder that kindness could rewrite a life. Maya read the comments in disbelief. Holding her baby close as strangers from across the country encouraged her, she never imagined the world would know her name, let alone respect it. The tycoon watched the growing attention carefully, not for himself, but to protect her. He arranged media guidance, supportive messaging, and boundaries so she would not be overwhelmed. Maya felt grateful, knowing she had someone looking out for her in a way no one had before, but even with support, the sudden attention brought challenges. Reporters waited outside the office, curious neighbors whispered, and people she had not heard from in years tried to reconnect. Maya stayed calm, reminding herself who she was and what mattered most, her child and her purpose. Meanwhile, the childcare program she helped design began moving forward. Applications poured in from employees who had silently struggled for years. Some cried when they were approved, others wrote thank you letters, describing how their lives would change. Maya read each message, feeling a deep connection to every parent who had ever stood in her shoes. The tycoon told her that empathy was not weakness, it was leadership, and she carried those words like armor wherever she went. One afternoon, Maya was invited to a community forum to discuss fair treatment for working parents. She hesitated, unsure if she was ready for another public appearance, but the tycoon encouraged her gently, saying her voice could open doors for others, so she agreed, and when she arrived, she found a full room of people waiting to hear her speak. Some were single mothers, some were tired fathers, some were employers who wanted to do better but didn't know how. Maya shared her story again, and this time she noticed something new. People were taking notes, nodding, and making commitments to change. Across town, the former restaurant manager sat alone in his small apartment, scrolling through the news coverage he wished he could ignore. Every headline reminded him of how badly he had misjudged Maya. He replayed the day he fired her, the anger in his voice, the humiliation he caused, and now he realized the truth. He had tried to break someone who refused to stay broken. He felt regret tightening in his chest. But it came too late. The world had already moved forward, and he was left behind. In silence. Back in the company, the childcare program officially launched, and Maya was asked to stand beside the tycoon during the announcement. Cameras flashed, employees cheered, and reporters asked questions. But something incredible happened. When the tycoon was asked why he created the program, he stepped aside and motioned to Maya, saying she was the reason. She felt her breath catch as all eyes turned to her again, but this time she did not tremble. She spoke clearly about dignity, fairness, and the belief that no parent should have to choose between survival and love. That moment became the headline, not the tycoon's wealth, not the company's success, but Maya's words. People called her a voice for the unheard, a champion for working parents, a symbol of rising from injustice. Maya returned home that night with her baby sleeping peacefully. She sat on her couch and looked around her small apartment. It was still modest, still simple, but it felt different now, not like a cage, but like a beginning. She whispered to her child that their life was changing. Step by step, breath by breath, hope by hope. Days later, the tycoon invited Maya to his office again. This time, he looked thoughtful, almost nervous. He told her there was an opportunity being offered, one that would take her story even further. A national organization wanted her to speak at a conference about workplace reform. Maya felt her heart race. She never imagined traveling, never imagined standing on a stage before hundreds of people, never imagined being seen as a leader beyond her own city. She asked him if he truly believed she could do it, and he answered without hesitation, saying she already had. Maya went home that evening with the offer in her mind. She walked through the city slowly, passing families, workers, students, strangers. She realized that her story belonged to more than just her now. It belonged to every person who had ever been dismissed, ignored, or mistreated while doing their best. She understood that accepting the invitation would not just be a step for her, but a step for many others who needed someone to stand up first. That night, she stood by the window, holding her baby against her heart. She looked out at the glowing skyline and breathed deeply. She thought about where she came from, what she survived, and what she had become, and in that quiet moment, she made her decision, knowing the next chapter of her journey would be even bigger, even braver, and even more powerful than everything before. The morning of the conference arrived with a golden sunrise lighting the sky. Maya stood in front of the mirror, holding her baby close, feeling both nervous and calm at the same time. She dressed simply but neatly, reminding herself that she did not need expensive clothes to carry her story. Her strength was her voice, her journey, and the truth she lived through. The Tycoon sent a car to pick her up, and as she rode through the city, she watched the familiar streets pass by, remembering the days she walked with tired legs and no direction. Now she was traveling toward a stage she never imagined she would stand on. When she arrived at the conference hall, she saw crowds of people gathering. Journalists, business leaders, parents, students, and workers filled the seats, waiting to hear speakers discuss fairness, respect, and change. Maya felt her heart beat faster, but she did not turn back. The Tycoon greeted her backstage, offering a reassuring smile. He told her she belonged there, not because of luck, but because she earned it. Maya breathed deeply and nodded, reminding herself that she had survived humiliation, poverty, loneliness, and judgment. A microphone could not frighten her more than life already had. Her name was called, and she stepped into the spotlight. The room fell silent, not because she was famous, but because her presence carried something real, something human, something powerful. She began to speak, her words soft but steady. She told them about the restaurant, about hiding her baby, about smiling while suffering, about being fired in front of strangers. She told them about fear, about shame, about feeling invisible. But then she told them about the moment everything changed, when someone chose compassion instead of cruelty, and how that choice opened a door she never knew existed. People listened with wide eyes and full hearts. Some wiped tears, some leaned forward, wanting to hear every word. Maya spoke about the childcare program, about the parents now able to work without fear, about the messages she received from people whose lives were changing. She said dignity should not depend on income, and respect should not depend on status. She said that a society was measured not by how it treated the powerful, but how it treated the struggling. When she finished, the room rose to its feet in a standing ovation that seemed to last forever. After the speech, reporters surrounded her, not to sensationalize her life, but to amplify her message. Organizations invited her to speak again, companies asked for guidance, advocacy groups wanted to collaborate. Maya felt overwhelmed, but not in fear, in gratitude. She held her baby and smiled as flashes went off, knowing she was no longer a story of suffering, but a story of strength. The Tycoon watched from a distance, proud but humble. He knew his role, and he knew hers. His power opened the door, but her courage walked through it. Across the city, the former restaurant manager saw the broadcast again. This time, he did not feel anger or jealousy, only regret. He realized he could have treated her differently, he could have listened, he could have asked, he could have cared, but he chose cruelty, and it led him here, alone, forgotten, and ashamed. He turned off the television and sat in silence, knowing he could not undo what he had done. The world had moved forward, and he had been left behind because he never learned what she already knew, that humanity matters. Meanwhile, the restaurant itself struggled to survive. Customers avoided it, reviews stayed low, and workers quit one by one. Eventually, the doors closed, not with a celebration, but with a quiet lock. In an empty dining room, the place where Maya cried and trembled was gone, replaced by a lesson written into the world around it, a reminder that cruelty has consequences, kindness has power, and dignity cannot be erased. Months passed, and Maya's life continued to grow in beautiful ways. She moved into a better home, not luxurious but warm and safe. Her baby grew healthy and happy, surrounded by love instead of stress. Maya continued working with the Tycoon, developing more programs, helping more families, and speaking to more audiences. She traveled to new cities, stood on new stages, and met people who told her she changed their lives. She never let fame distort her, she stayed humble, grounded, and real. Always remembering the woman she once was. One evening, Maya stood at her window once again, looking at the city lights with her child asleep in her arms. She thought about her journey, about the pain, the fear, the humiliation, and how all of it led her here, not because she was lucky, but because she refused to break, because someone chose compassion, and because she chose to rise. She smiled softly and whispered to her child that the world could be hard, but courage could be harder, that people could be cruel, but strength could be stronger, and that no one's story was ever truly finished until they decided how it would end. And in that quiet moment, Maya knew the truth that would stay with her forever. She was no longer surviving her story, she was leading it, guiding it, and inspiring others to write their own. Her journey was not defined by the day she was fired, but by the day she stood up, stepped forward, and changed everything.